Welcome to Therapy, Tech, and Takeout, where humor meets healing with bite-sized chunks of wisdom and techie tips.
Hi, I'm your co-host, Jackie Toll, entrepreneur, tech investor, and all around low rent stand-up comedian, I think, in my life.
Yeah.
To nobody in my family's joy but mine.
I'm Toni Teixeira. I'm a therapist, entrepreneur, ethics nerd, and recovering overthinker. And Jackie, I'm wondering, what's feeling good this week? What are you vibing?
And this is kind of in line with our topic for today. But
Mm.
one of my like daily podcasts that I like to listen to is called The Daily Zeitgeist, and they had um a guest on today. They have different guests every day. But they had a guest on today, and his name was Tim Batt, and he does this podcast called The Worst Idea of All Time. And they have been doing um like a watch and review of like the whole catalog of Sex in the City and just like that all the way to like current day, but like in like a really sarcastic kind of, and like just sounds really funny. I have not kept up with it after, like, I think I saw the movies at some point, but I don't really remember them. But like I watched the series, like I had the series, like so. Anyway, they have this podcast, and it sounds just like something I can listen to and like kind of do other things mentally too, while I catch up on whatever has been happening in the ridiculous storyline. So I'm
Mm.
super excited about that. How about you, Tony?
Very cool. I'm excited because my both my daughters are going to be in. One's coming in this week, the other one next week, and I'll have all my chickies in the house, as I say, when all my kids are home. So I am just totally excited and in heaven and doing silly things like what snacks can I buy for my kids and what are we going to do and how are we going to all play together and hang out. So I'm in my happy place.
That is awesome. I am there with you. This is my last week with my twins at home before they go away to school, and I am like doing this. I am like soaking in every minute. I am just so, it is so much fun. So I am excited for you. That's awesome.
I get you. Yeah. Yeah. So what are we talking about today?
So today we are talking about our jumping off point is an article, and of course, let me go back to my. It's called Nonstop Podcasts Are Rewiring Your Brain. And it basically hit a chord with me because I am one of those people who really likes having noise on all the time. Like I sleep with things running. Like I really, really like noise on a level that most people don't.
This is not me at all.
Like,
I need total silence to do
yeah.
anything.
And I
Mm,
am like hardcore the opposite of that. And so it's like very not that there aren't times that I need to like shut things off. Like I've been trying to read this lease, and so there are times I have to just, I can't have anything distracting me. But if I'm trying to like do something creative or whatever, I need some input
mhm.
happening that's that I can kind of not pay attention to for some reason. But so, and I found the this idea of like an emotional support podcast. Like that really
Emotional
resonated with
support.
me. It was,
Is that this new podcast? Is this a new emotional support podcast
this
for you?
could be a good emotional support podcast if I need one. I think Knowledge Fight was an emotional support podcast for me, like through like a difficult time in my life. Because those guys are just like guys I could count on that like just really were
I love that podcast. You
fighting
turned
the
me
good
on to
fight.
that. Yeah, definitely.
And laughing through what we can with it and stuff. So yeah, that's definitely been one. But I think this one's more of like a put it on so I can work podcast, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Um
So the article that you're talking about, the nonstop podcasts, the they were talking about. like, is it like an addiction to podcasts? Like, what's their take on how like what's happening with people and
Yeah.
podcasts? Yeah.
So the author really noticed that she was consuming a lot of media, books, audiobooks, and podcasts, and decided to take like a month-long break, like um, just without any of that. And um, I think it was funny. She said it started with, or like, one of the early stories of recalling it, she said was like, when she took a shower without having a podcast on. And I was like, oh, mm-hmm.
You related.
I did. I was like, yeah, I almost always like to have something on, no matter, especially if I'm doing any task like that. Like, and I don't care if it's somebody else's something on, you know, like if it's just like, but there's nothing I can stand. Like if I have to cook dinner and there's nothing on, like no music, no TV, no nothing, I like
What
nails on a
happens?
chalkboard.
Oh,
It
nails on a
is like
chalkboard.
so tedious. It's like you hear everything. I don't know. It gets like way too like tactile and sensory. Like I can kind of like I feel a little bit more focused when I'm like when there's something else kind of distracting me. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like if I'm like if I'm thinking about it, I'm either gonna zone out and like not like be in it and then hurt myself, or it's gonna be kind of like overwhelming.
I'm really curious though for that the writer, what was the impetus behind like stopping? If it's something that feels so good, what was her like detox or cleanse from listening to stuff about? Do you know why she wanted to do it?
I
Just as an
think
experiment?
it was based on the idea that there's some research that suggests that, especially listening to or consuming all of this audio media at high listening speeds, impedes our ability to interact with people because that moves a lot slower.
Mm,
Um,
hmm.
and I think that resonates to some extent, Um, there are some things I think I've even sent them to you. Like you might want to listen to this like at 1.5 speed or whatever. But like I do try to listen to most things at least at um well, I guess if they're in the background. For me, it's like if it's in the background. But I think for her it was like she was like over consuming but not really like taking in a lot of the information. And it was like was it like a cushion for loneliness or but it was also like stopping engagement with other people on some level. And so I think she just wanted to kind of like connect to what did the other side of that look like.
Hmm.
And in my opinion she did it in a really drastic way. um, but because even when we did our experiment with our cell phones,
Yeah.
I would leave podcasts as an acceptable thing.
Oh,
Like, because I
yeah.
wasn't on my phone, I was just listening. Like, it
Yeah.
wasn't like I was like scrolling or doing something wasted. It felt like I was, but
Yeah, I would agree with you. Like that I when I did it, it was really about scrolling. It was like
yeah.
Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and constantly checking my email, which can
Yeah.
become a, oh, let me refresh, or I have a bunch of email accounts. So yeah, it's interesting that you bring this up because I like didn't really think about the consumption that we do, and that even that is a stimuli that's coming in through our senses that can interrupt the relationships and the things that we're experiencing in other places around us. So it makes a lot of sense that that might be something to think about in terms of how it's affecting our brain, whether it's audiobooks or podcasts, and then of course we have TV and things like that. I also, when we think about the brain, like, ancestrally, we had a lot less stimuli than we have now. So I think that there really is got to be an impact on our brains because our brains, like the consumption we have now in a day, like our ancestors probably had in a year, if
Yeah.
that, you know?
Oh yeah. And it's interesting too, because I know we talk also about AI and concerns about being able to like retain our ability to reason as well and like challenge conclusions and challenge thinking and things like that. Um, I think back to like something I retained from history class, which I did, there's not a lot. But one of the things I remember was that like reading, and I think it was like, probably for mostly women or, whatever, but like was seen as something that could like make you not think as well. Like if you were like a bookworm, like people would like criticize you for that on some level, that like you wouldn't have your own wit, so you can't have your own thoughts, or you need somebody else's thoughts in
Hmm.
your head all the time and things like that. And then like when I was a kid, it was like TV, and it's gone through a bunch of different iterations, but it's also like the
Hmm.
quickening of it too, right? There's like so much more. It's like going from reading to TV, or reading to radio to TV and stuff. Like it's just more and more and more.
Hmm.
And so I think you're right. Like, and it hasn't been like an incredible number of generations, right? Like,
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, like, like the Industrial Revolution,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
and what that brought in terms of like manufacturing and cars and like producing things that were going to stimulate us, like driving. There's a big difference between just driving and walking. And the stimulation that you get from that, moving quickly through the world. And then, so I'm thinking about listening quickly. You're talking about putting things on, um, speed it up even. My husband does that. He'll listen to, he'll watch like videos or things and he'll put it on, 1.5, I guess, speed. Yeah. And
what
he
type of
is,
videos does he watch like that? Is it a specific type?
um, when he's doing a course, he's learning something that like he has to take a test for, he has to learn like kind of a thing for work, he'll speed it up. He can take in it's thing he's going to get questions on, but he can take in that information at that speed, and I think it goes in better for him. He
I
is the
get
kind of
that. Yeah.
person who likes the stimulation while he's working. He
Hmm.
plays, has stuff on the TV. It's usually stuff that he's seen before or has simple enough plots that he doesn't have to pay attention every single minute, but it's there
Yeah.
and it helps him work. And I'm really curious, like you're like him too. You're very similar. And I can't work unless there's silence. Except I have tried the binaural beats,
Hmm.
which has like there's no words or anything. It's just kind of background sound. And that doesn't bother me as much, but I can take it or leave it. I don't have to have it.
I can like I can handle it. I don't know, like it's not something I like reach for. But like I can like it can help me like I can do that if I can't there's nothing else to like if I need to go to sleep or something like that. Like that's
Hmm.
noise enough. Or even like there's a like a YouTube video that's just like the sound of being in an airplane. Like that one like sometimes works. So sometimes white noise is like okay, but it's not what I'm like
Yeah,
reaching for usually.
yeah.
Usually if I need to pay attention, I do like it at a faster pace. I agree. Like it helps it go in for me.
Mhm.
But like when I'm looking for something to help me like get going on other things like work related, like I want it to be as bland and like as ignorable as possible, or like positive, like nothing to get me down, like
Hmm.
reading
So,
Rainbow, or it's not that, but like I'd like like something. Like unfortunately, like there's this one show, and it's not that it's like necessarily all positive, but it's quirky enough that it works for me. It's called Resident Alien. I don't
I
like sci-fi. I don't like anything like that.
love
I
Resident
love
Alien.
Resident Alien. I can have Resident Alien on and I can watch it. Like I think I've seen like except for the newest season that I'm just starting to watch. Like I've seen them like
Don't
500
no
times
no
because like
spoilers because my daughter's coming home. We watched the first three seasons and now we're gonna watch this last season with her. I'm so excited. Love Resident Alien. Um,
I love that we have that in common because feels like a random thing.
I love that. My husband's probably gonna get mad at me, but I'm gonna tell you what he watches.
Oh
He
yay.
he watches Hallmark movies.
Really?
There's a simple formula. It's
Hmm.
always going to be the same, except like, he gets really excited if they kiss, like before the end of the movie. Um, but because he knows the formula, so of the show of those kinds of movies, it's background noise, doesn't matter really too much about what's going on. He can follow the story and it's enough noise, but not too much to overstimulate him that it distracts from what he's doing. So I think he has a formula too, just like you have Resident Alien. It has a certain vibe for you that
Yeah.
it matches. I mean, what do you think about like you, my husband, and me? Like, I don't get it. You know,
Yeah. Trust me. I know
are
because
we
we don't
wired
get it also.
differently? Are we
I
wired differently? And you said something earlier about taking a shower with the podcast on. I was like, oh, like I don't put anything on when I'm taking a shower. Never even thought about putting anything on. Um, are we wired differently?
I feel like maybe, I think for me, a lot of it goes back to like being an only child, like as like media and having media playing while I was like even if it was something I wasn't that super interested in while I was doing something else to distract myself or like, be alone when you're a kid. I think it became like a real sort of like it made sense how the author was talking about it kind of being like an emotional support like media, it kind of was there to help make it less like lonely and quiet and like I wasn't really a reader growing up. And so like that wasn't like I had friends that would read a ton and that I couldn't pay attention long enough. Like I just couldn't do it until I was an adult.
Hmm.
Um but yeah, I think there is just a fundamental wiring, but it's interesting because I think somewhere and maybe it's just been undone evolutionarily recently, but somewhere in us like there's a deep aversion to complete silence. And I find it interesting. I don't know how much you know about these things. They're called, and I think I'm saying it correctly, anechoic chambers. And they're used for like sound equipment testing and things like that, but they are like so insulated and quiet that you can't like people can't stand to be in them for very long. Like it's so silent, people can't handle being in there. And so I thought if you haven't seen anything about them or heard anything about them, I could describe what it would be like.
I have not heard about these kinds of chambers. I'd love to. I'm like really curious. Could there really be a place that's so quiet?
Yeah.
That's, yeah, yeah.
So imagine stepping into a room where the air feels thick, like it's swallowing every sound before it reaches your ears. You close the door, and the silence isn't peaceful, it's heavy. At first, you notice your breathing, then the faint thump of your heart. And after a few minutes, you hear the creak of your joints as you shift your weight in this place. There's nothing to hide behind. No hum of traffic, no refrigerator buzz, not even the sound of your own voice unless you chose to speak. This is an anechoic chamber, the quietest place on earth, and most people can't stand to be in it for 20 to 30 minutes. People start feeling dizzy, anxious, and desperate to get out. And the record is just under an hour. I think it's like 55 minutes. So, like, it made me start to think if these places are so unbearable, and I can read like that feels physically uncomfortable to think about for
That
me,
description is so uncomfortable. Yeah.
right? So as a person who likes silence, though, that would you say like you think you would be uncomfortable with that level of silence
I
too?
mean, the way that you describe it, it's really weird that I would have this notice this, but because it's about hearing, it sounded claustrophobic,
Yeah.
which is like not a sense I would think about when I was thinking about hearing. No, I would not like that. I do not want to hear my joints creak at all. Um, and that's amazing if you think about the padding of the walls and stuff, what it would take to be able to hear or lack of padding to hear every single thing in your own body. I don't want to hear that stuff.
Right? Like that feels like so like oh.
Uncomfortable, really
Have you ever
uncomfortable.
done, and I like weirdly enough, I love the sensory deprivation tanks.
I
Have you
knew
ever
you were
the
going to say
float
that.
tanks?
I've never been
Love
done that.
them.
Really?
I it feels like so for me, like when I go to the dentist and I get my teeth cleaned, like I will regularly like make my tongue sore, like feeling my clean teeth. Like it's like such a cool, fresh feeling. I don't know. Like I just like it has that like interesting thing about it. But this has that same feeling, but in my brain. I don't know how else to describe it, but it is
Mhm.
like part of my brain just feels like pressure washed or something.
Mhm. So there's kind of like a happy point. There's like a place of diminishing returns though with the silence. Because I was thinking about that, like the sensory deprivation piece
It's
of it.
yeah.
Then your sensory tank isn't depriving you as much as this is. This is
No.
true
Yeah,
deprivation.
I don't
Yeah,
think, and it feels like a real
yeah.
different like difference, right?
It sounds like torture.
Yeah.
I mean, the way you describe it and maybe and think about it like prisoners who go to isolation, why are they in isolation and why is it a punishment? Because they are deprived human contact,
Oh
sound,
yeah.
everything. So it does sound torturous. I think our brains are built to, and like that's why we have brains and like organs and eyes and ears and mouths and to take in and to give us some input. Um, those parts of our brain, I mean, we know if we lack a certain period of time without input, we might actually lose our senses.
Yeah.
Like if you did that to babies or young, I think they've actually done this research with like kittens and stuff. It's terrible. They don't do it anymore, where they take away their visual field and they won't develop sight. So we need input to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a real interesting place, right? Of like, I mean, it shows you how these things are kind of like food in a way, right? It's like you need them, but you can also be disordered with them.
that's right. Yeah, because we've been talking about like what happens when it interrupts your relationships, your life, maybe even your focus. Maybe for some people, for you, it's a positive, but for some people, they may be engaging so much that it keeps them away from focusing, and they're losing time. They're going down a rabbit hole and not actually, getting their work done or engaging with other people in their family. So
Oh yeah.
sounds. Yeah.
It's interesting. Like
Mhm. How would
I
you know if it was like, if you do have, we're talking about like it not being good. So, like, what if you have an unhealthy attachment to sound or to, the input of podcasts and media and all that stuff? How would you know? What do you think?
I mean, I think that part of it is like not like comparing yourself to others. Like, or that's like the first place I start because I think early on in my life I thought I was like so weird for being like this and it wasn't until I started to like meet other people. Like I remember one time I went away on a work trip and I used to hate work trips because they used to make you like bunk with somebody random from the company. Um it was so weird. Like
Yeah.
What a
Here's the
strange
stranger.
what a
Go live
strange
with them
time
for a week.
like the early 2000s were. But yeah, it was like that. And like I remember this one woman and she was like, I really like to fall asleep to Law and Order. Are you okay with that? And I was like, hell yeah, let's bring it on. And I was like, this is my favorite person to sleep with. Not like that,
No.
but like, just like finding other people that have those. So I think starting from a place of like, you know, it's all okay, or like like I think it's assessing. Is it impacting your ability to get stuff done? Is it impacting your quality of relationships with people? Um, is it keeping you from thinking about something that you don't want to deal with? And like, are you ready to deal with that? And if not, like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
whatever those things are. Um,
Yeah.
I think having those conversations with yourself on a periodic basis are somewhat helpful.
I
If it's
like
something you're worried about.
the
Yeah.
self reflection and the self awareness. And also, I think that I really want to normalize that everybody's brain is different. And we're gonna, lean more into certain stimuli more than other kinds of stimuli. For some people, it might be sound input is really important to help them function. I think of people with ADHD who actually need the distraction to be able to really focus and get their work done. But everybody's brain is different, so it's not necessarily a bad thing that people are listening to sound. We're wired to hear, right? We're wired. We have that part of our brain online to do that. Of course, there are people who don't have hearing.
Right.
Right, right, and they still get stimulation through other senses. So you know, I think about, like, I always ask people, like, what kind of learner are you? Are you an auditory learner? Are you a visual learner? It's kind of like that. Like we gravitate toward the thing that just feels good for our brain.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a bad thing. What if, is it something you would want to cut down? Like, would you want to do the experiment that they did in that article that the author did?
So I toyed with, and I don't know if I've ever told you this, but like back in 2021, after I stopped working, I joined the Peace Corps.
Okay.
Because I did,
I learned something new
all
every day
right.
about you.
I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was like, when you don't know what you want to do, like be in service, and thankfully, like it was like a year long like process of like all of the background checks and stuff. And one of the things, like I went into it with like not really like trying to have like no expectations, like just wanting to have an experience. But one of the things I was looking to get out of it was like it's gonna force me to learn to sleep without sound, without like, you know,
Hmm.
Netflix or whatever playing in the background. And I'm like, so I've definitely toyed with the idea of like an extreme, like ripping the band-aid off because it feels like something that would kind of require a sensory reset for me. Like I don't know that doing something like that for a month would be long enough to make it
Hmm.
stick. And but I do think for me, what I find better is like a little bites of it, right? Like going to a yin yoga class a couple times a week or sitting and meditating for a little while. Any of these things. Going for a walk outside without my headphones, even if it's 5 minutes. Like just a little sort of like peace break in the day is helpful. I
Hmm.
don't know. Do you integrate any of that in your?
In my day, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not always listening to stuff. I probably listen more now in the past couple of years to more stuff than I used to. I mean, I um have run without music and without headphones and
Ooh,
worked out without, yeah,
wow,
without
hardcore.
music. Um, but sometimes I do. Like sometimes I don't, and sometimes I do. Sometimes I take walks without headphones. Um, but sometimes I do because I feel like now I think I'm doing it a lot more and I want to think about that and do some self-reflection on what am I doing? Am I distracting myself? I had a run coach who really recommended not running with headphones so that I could listen to my body and I could tune in more and notice what was going on with that. So it is really interesting. I like your idea of doing it in small chunks and spending some time like meditating or doing activities instead of doing like a whole cold turkey thing, which could be like, I don't know, what does the withdrawal look like from sound, from stimuli?
Yeah.
That would be really hard to really just break that habit. And it may not be necessary. Again, if it's not interfering with in your life, why change it?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. So what do you think
But
about this topic?
I mean, I think it's an important, for me, it's an important topic to bring up because I do think we all have like different interaction levels. Like you said, we are all wired differently, but then there are some of these things that are super common, I guess, that like none of us want to hear our joints move or the blood move through our vessels. Like that's too inside.
That's too inside. Nobody wants to be that close to their, like what's inside. I mean, the one thing that came to mind is you can't find one of these chambers probably in nature. It probably doesn't
Yeah.
exist,
No, uh-uh.
right? So we're probably not really built for that.
Yeah.
And it sounds really torturous. So,
And it's interesting too. Like I think tying that to the sensory deprivation, I'd love to hear if anybody else has tried any of these things from our listeners or, have interest in them. Like I said, I am a huge fan of trying a flotation because it's not silent. Like the water kind of takes care of that and stuff. And it is just a fixed period of time. But yeah, I'd love to hear if there are other things people are doing or trying that help you kind of get that mental reset back to like a more balanced place.
yeah, great question. Yeah, I'd love to hear what other people think about this topic and how they handle sound like in their own lives. Thanks for bringing in this topic. This was really fun today, Jackie.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Tony. I enjoyed it. Talk to you soon.